Yo. Hey besties. What's good? Um I'm here for a good time, not a long time, because I need to eat breakfast and I had a reading immediately before this, so apologize for being a few minutes late. But happy Monday and welcome to your weekly transit chat. So I'm gonna get right into it. If you were watching the replay, thank you so much for being here. If you were watching live, please like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a chat in the comment just to say hello and let me know that you're here. So this week's astrology for the actual week of Monday to Sunday is pretty chill. It's mostly just the moon moving around. Currently in Pisces, which means it'll be in Pisces, Aries, Taurus, and then by Monday of next week, the 13th, the moon will be in Gemini and we will have our full moon in Gemini. So I figured full moons are juiciest as you're leading up to them. And uh since nothing else significant, no other significant aspects are happening this week, we should just talk about the full moon. Hey Sherry, good to see you. So Yeah, I'll probably be on for about 45 minutes and then I'm gonna dip so that I can eat before work. But yeah, full moon in my first house on top of my moon. Love that for me. Do you have any significant mutable placements? Are you a mutable rising person? Do you have Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, or Pisces significant somewhere in your chart? This full moon is interesting to me because one, Mercury, the ruler of the full moon, is finally in Sagittarius after a very, very long stay in Scorpio due to the Mercury retrograde in Scorpio. So, excuse me, Mercury in Sagittarius is an interesting placement because Mercury is opposite its home sign of Gemini. One of two home signs, the other one being Virgo. So Mercury at home in Gemini would look like, taking in as much information and being as knowledgeable as possible about a bunch of different things. If you are a person with Gemini placements, particularly Mercury or, something else, you are probably a person who knows a lot more than you think that you do. But you see yourself as more of an eternal student, or you see yourself as someone who's endlessly curious and fascinated or interested in what other people think, what other people believe, what other people have to say. But how often do you actually speak up and share and tell other people what you think and what you believe and what you know? I think because one of the mercurial wounds for both Gemini and Virgo, but we're talking about Gemini today. Um, One of the mercurial wounds is around either people just straight up not listening to you because they think that you don't know what you're talking about, or not believing you because insert X amount of reasons why somebody may not believe you or feel inclined to listen or trust what you're saying is true. And I don't fully know why that is. But I could guess. Of course, it depends on the person and other things going on in your chart. I can say for me personally, something I literally did not realize until probably 2019 or 2020, maybe even 2021, is that a lot of the reasons why I think people didn't take me seriously or believe me for so long was because of all of my identity aspects, being black, being queer, being a woman at the time in the town that I grew up in. Like, yeah, everybody was racist basically. So of course, like, people in positions of power didn't listen to me or take me seriously or believe what I had to say. Another reason for condescension would be age. Another reason would be credentials, or I don't know, like having some kind of institutional backup or approval or whatever. Like, there are a number of reasons why people may not believe you or take you seriously that are legit. Sometimes it's just being inexperienced in something or whatever it is. But then there are situations like, for example, Ali Lukes on Twitter. If you were on Twitter for the week that she announced her thesis, which I believe was olfactory ethics, everybody, like, when she first posted about it, and everybody meaning, like, these shitty Twitter troll types and white supremacists who are anti-intellectuals basically. They were like, what olfactory ethics, like, what a waste of time and, like, discipline. Like, why would you spend 4 years or however long it is making a PhD about olfactory ethics? And then literally every day since then, she's been validated in some way, shape, or form on the timeline, and is constantly, like, just constantly proven correct that actually, like, there's more to this than meets the eye. And I think it's been very fascinating to observe, and I just love it for her. A lot of the reasons people were dismissing her off bat, I'm sure, were because she's a woman, albeit a white woman, but because she's a woman and because people just don't have any curiosity a lot of times. They don't want to investigate or look deeper into reasons why something might be relevant. Hey, Jada. So, oh, Sherry, you have a lot of Mercury stuff going on. Okay, period. Um, so yeah, so anyway, like, that's just one example of a time where people immediately dismiss or invalidate someone's intelligence and knowledgeability on a subject, and then every day since then she's been validated. So there's that. Um because Mercury is in Sagittarius, they don't even know what olfactory means, dead ass. Because Mercury is in Sagittarius, like Mercury is in a position where Mercury actually has to say it with their chest, right? Like stand on business, say it with your chest, preach from your soapbox in the mountaintops that this is what I believe, this is what is true to me, or rather, this is the truth, and I'm not afraid to say it. And then there's, when taken too far, the capacity to be loud and wrong. Um, I feel like Gemini and Virgo really don't like to be loud, let alone loud and wrong. They especially don't like to be wrong. And so I think that's what keeps Mercury ruled placements, Mercury ruled people from really speaking up and speaking their truth, whether that's their personal subjective truth or if it's, like I said, reciting information that you were knowledgeable and true about. This is definitely a struggle for me for a long time as an astrologer. And part of the reason why I did my daily live challenge in October was because I was like, I need to get over that. I have things to say that may not be relevant to everybody, that everybody may not care about or believe in or think is true, but I think it, I believe it, it's true to me. And I study a lot. So fuck it. Let me talk about it. Um, so yeah, Mercury in Sagittarius is a little bit more, like I said, saying it with your chest and a little bit more trusting yourself and believing in yourself and having faith in things that you're saying. I think in a collective sense, like it is definitely a lot of, it can be a lot of propaganda and indoctrination tactics, which Trump gets inaugurated this month. So that's something coming up. Um, I've also just seen a lot of conversation. Um, so kind of shifting gears because this is kind of what I wanted to talk about in this topic. I've seen a lot of conversation around like, how do I explain this? Let me just tell you a story. So on TikTok, there's Halo, good to see you. Oh, Virgo rising, Gemini stellium, and the dismissal stuff hits hard. Absolutely. Okay, so one example of, what am I trying to say? Okay, let me lay this out, the astrology out first. So Gemini full moon next week on Monday, ruled by Mercury in Sagittarius. Cool. Mercury in Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, who is in Taurus. So Taurus enters the chat. Jupiter in Taurus is ruled by Venus in Aquarius. So Venus enters the chat. And Venus in Aquarius is ruled by Saturn in Aquarius. Basically ends with Saturn because Saturn is in its own sign. So that's kind of our chain of command, hierarchy of priorities, if you will. So we know that this full moon is both mutable and fixed. Mutable having to do with, again, discernment and certainty, what you know, information that you're taking in, how you make sense of it, and what that tells you is true or not true about the world around you and your experiences. And then there's the fixed sign side that's about identity and self-preservation, your sense of self, who you are, and kind of who you need to be in order to survive, depending on the situation and the context. So both of those ideas come together to inform both our sense of self and our beliefs and politics, if you will. So I'm obviously going to take the political angle because that's what I do. So on TikTok, there's been discourse ever since Christmas about Beyonce's performance and really about the Cowboy Carter album in general. This has kind of been an ongoing theme since Cowboy Carter came out. And the context of that basically being that Cowboy Carter is a Beyonce country album, country-esque album. There's a lot of like American flag and just American I don't know, like American themes around it, specifically relating to like Southern America culture, and some country culture and whatever. And she's, I guess, I haven't listened to the album all the way through because I just couldn't do it. But just the symbolism of the American flag alone and this whole red, white, and blue thing, whether it's like Black Southern America or not, it's still Beyonce on a horse waving around a fucking American flag during a time where America's got problems as she said in the Renaissance album. America got a lot of problems. America is funding a genocide. America is like doing what America does in terms of like foreign affairs and all that kind of stuff. So, not to get too bogged down in that, but a lot of you know the context of that, right? So, the politics of her dropping this album, yes, and the timing of whatever her next drop is being on my birthday. Like, I have to be overshadowed by Beyonce on my birthday. That sucks. I'm already a Capricorn, damn it, and now I got to deal with her too. Anyways, um, so yeah, being that she is kind of doing this focus on um black Southern America and country music and all these types of things, but specifically the propaganda of American nationalism or whatever, is problematic to a lot of people. And then you add in the context of Beyonce herself being a billionaire. Like, whether she's black, whether she's a woman, all of that type of stuff, at the end of the day, when you're dealing with class, which is a big issue in the context of America, her releasing this album during this particular time in political history where we're, coming up on another MAGA Trump presidency, fascism on the rise, and, escalating and all of these types of things, white nationalism on the rise, like, it is weird, for lack of a better way to put it, for her to be releasing this album and to be just like kind of really putting it in everyone's face. So, that being said, on TikTok and just kind of on the internet in general, um, there are a lot of leftists and, just people left of center who are critiquing her performance, but in general, just this whole like American flag thing that she's got going on with the blonde hair and everything else. That's like, hey, you guys, this is giving propaganda. You know, celebrities are, for lack of a better way to put it, agents of the state whenever it comes to how they manipulate culture. So her kind of boosting this American flag nationalism thing and patriotism and all this stuff during this time is not a good look. And she's a billionaire. So like the impact that has on her is different than the impact that it has on you, the consumer, especially you who is a black consumer um dealing with fascism in America. So controversial to critique Beyonce because the Beehive is what it is. And let me just say for myself, so you know my own bias, I am a fan of Beyonce's music, but Beyonce as a person, I don't know that lady. So I can't speak for her intentions. I can't speak for what she really means to do. I can't speak for any of those things. I can only speak on behalf of what I'm perceiving of the art in the larger cultural context. So, like, yeah, I listen to Renaissance, I listen to Beyonce's old stuff, I bop to the music, and I have no problem saying that what she's doing is propaganda, point blank. Like, and that she's a billionaire, she's going on the plate with the rest of the rich whenever we eat them. It just is what it is. She did her whole Tiffany Blood Diamonds thing, which was a whole problem. She's married to Jay-Z, who is a whole other problem. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on with them that we are not privy to because she keeps her life very private because she knows we're going to talk about her. And at the same time, while these all to me feel like valid critiques, a lot of people take issue with that and then spin it into this thing where now they're saying that it's anti-black and misogynistic and so on and so forth to critique her. Much in the same way, mind you, that people were just doing around the time of the election about Kamala Harris, right? See that connection? People are, some people, and not saying everybody, because some people do have valid points in terms of actually being black Southerners and speaking on their experience of what it's like to be black in the southern parts of America. And that to me is not even a separate conversation, but it's not so much the point of critiquing Beyonce. It is kind of separate in that sense. So anyway, a lot of critiques erupted around Christmas around Beyonce's performance because of all the context I just listed. And then it led to another conversation, as it does, that ended up focusing on one person. Her name is Hannah on TikTok. She's a biracial leftist, I think, woman, if she's not non-binary, but woman or a femme presenting person. And she, I guess, came out with this critique. And then a lot of people basically told her that she's not allowed to have that opinion because she is a white presenting woman, basically. And so for her to make these critiques about Beyonce is anti-black and misogynoir and misogynistic, and then some people have taken it very far to now make it a statement about biracial people in general, and then it's turned into a conversation about biracials and whether you have a white mom or a black mom or a white dad or a black dad, and the difference between all of these things. Like, they've turned it into a full-blown identity identity conversation, and now we've entered back into Jim Crow one drop rule era dynamics on TikTok. So I'm laying out all of this context because it ties together the whole like mutable and fixed sign thing, using one example that you could extrapolate, I'm sure, into many other conversations. Now, I've not been super immersed in the topic. It was one of those topics that was brought to me by a friend, and we were talking about it together. Um and so as far as like what I believe, I've already said. To me, it's about the American flag at the end of the day. And, the country music scene, even though most music started with black people, as we know, the country music scene of today and the audience of people who are consuming white country music and all of those types of things, and just all of the associations that you can make, which is very Jupiter, by the way, very cultural, by the way, of the types of people who consume certain media, and the assumptions then that people tend to make, or the biases that people tend to have about people who consume certain media, and how those two things are converging over country music due to Beyonce and due to her performance and the American flag and everything else, right? And isn't Beyonce multiracial? I think so. Didn't she say the whole thing about being black in Creole? And Creole is kind of like French. Is it French? Or I don't know. Let me not speak on things I don't fully know about, but she's made it known. And her appearance as well, being, a lighter skinned woman with blonde hair, usually the blonde wig or the blonde weaves or whatever it is that she got going on. Like, that image, that perception, that appearance, Taurus, has connotations depending on who you ask and where you are, and certain privileges being afforded to people of certain appearances or whatever. But what I want to circle back to is the discourse focusing on the specific creator, and people saying like, hey, you can't have that opinion because you are a white presenting biracial person who's basically not black enough to have that opinion. So whenever I talk about, mercurial wounds around having your opinions or your ideas being dismissed because of your identity, which brings in the Aquarius and the Taurus of it all, um, that's kind of like a good example or archetype of some of what seems to be going on. And then you could extrapolate that, I'm sure, to more things. Something I wanted to mention was I saw Wicked recently. If you've been following me on socials, you know about this. And I knew nothing about like Wicked. Wizard of Oz was one of my favorite movies growing up. The original, I think it was the original, but I forget that lady's name who played Dorothy. That version of it I watched a lot as a child. Um, I don't have too much memory of it as an adult, even though I did watch it before I moved into this apartment back in like July or August. But anyway, all that to say, I didn't know. Hey, Samaje. I didn't know, and also hello, Jim. I didn't know about Wicked because I'm not really a Broadway girly, but a very popular Broadway story based on the book series that came out as kind of a spin-off of Wizard of Oz. And fun fact, the Wicked series, I forget that guy's name, but the Wicked series is actually having its Saturn return right now, Saturn in Aquarius. So if that tells you anything about the relevance of the timing of this movie being released, it's all related. So very cool. So the story of Wicked, without giving it away, is basically like the Wicked Witch of the East has a whole backstory. And the first of the Wicked series is kind of about the Wicked Witch Elphaba, her backstory, and how she's green. And the Wicked Witch of the West, Galinda, is white lady, blonde white lady, I guess. But in general, like, because Elphaba comes out green as a child, it's basically like an allegory for racism, I'm pretty sure. Now, I haven't read the original series. I tried. It's very boring to me, but I'm going to keep trying. The author of the books, the author of the original books. Um, the original book is having its Saturn return. So anyway, the Wicked movie, since that's the only thing I have a reference for, is what I'll speak on today. Alphaba comes out green, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, throw it away!" Basically, and the rest of the story is very Scorpio for Alphaba. Alphaba is clearly like the Scorpio archetype of her identity and the ways that people treat her being based on her being green and everyone being disgusted with her being green and having all kinds of judgments about her for it. And then there's like the larger story around like Elphaba's power and her coming to realize her powers towards the end of the movie. But then um you'll have to see it because I don't want to spoil it. But the way that she's villainized for having green skin is like the gist of it. All I can think about is your pussy green. Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of part of it, right? Like any black person knows Elphaba's experience like deeply, especially if you grew up around white people. And the way that this astrology shit is real. That's what I'm saying. Oh, hey Madison. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's so good. If you haven't seen it, like, you don't have to be a theater head to see it and fucking get it. It's so good, especially if you're black, if you're queer, if you have some kind of marginalized identity, that movie will resonate for you. I've like changed because of that movie. The timing of it coming out and seeing it is so perfect for the astrology. And it very much has political overtones to it as well, or undertones, overtones of like, rebelling against the system and like oppression and all of these different themes. So it's very on time. I saw that movie on New Year's Day, and it also speaks to a lot of these themes coming up with this full moon as well. Like them scapegoating Elphaba basically and her trying to like speak up on behalf of the animals and like cruelty against animals, the animal people of the town and everything else. And so anyway, what was I trying to say? There was a connection I made earlier that I wanted to reference to that. Shit, now I don't remember the connection, but just watch the movie. Maybe we'll talk about it next week. um, but coming up on this full moon, like just realizing how easily it is to be indoctrinated, first of all, into like a specific way of believing and seeing things, but then also like people's resistance to actually pushing against indoctrination and propaganda. Like, even when you know you're being propagandized, like, it preys on your emotions in a big way. It preys on your sense of like safety and community and things like that, so that if you are to speak out against it, it costs you your relationships. And I don't have to say it again, but we've obviously seen this a lot with COVID as well. Like, if you're trying to speak about the truth of COVID, people will tune you out and block you out because, what do you know that the medical industrial complex doesn't know? It's like, well, you would be surprised. Anyway, so all of these things are related. Let me see what y'all are saying in the comments because my brain is scattered all over the place. Parable of the Sower is too. I need to read Parable of the Sower because I've heard that it's a little too on the nose, and helps to kind of make sense of things going on right now as well. Definitely the direction that we're headed in right now. But he wrote those books with the theme of propaganda. This astrology shit is real. Yes, like the book, like the Wicked series, is not for children. Like, the author is very clear. This is not about children. And the author is also queer. He's a gay white man, I believe. So the themes around like AIDS and HIV, since it was written in 95 and all of that kind of stuff, also plays into kind of the commentary of it all. But yeah, my sidereal Gemini friend from high school was obsessed with Wizard of Oz and he knew all of the songs. Yeah, like it was just on repeat throughout my childhood. I don't know why I was so obsessed with that movie. And I tried to rewatch as an adult to figure out why, but the best that I can think of is like Dorothy also experienced a lot of dismissiveness. She kind of was Gemini coded to me when I watched it, if not Aquarius coded. I think the movie in general is very Aquarius coded, but she was very Gemini or Aquarius coded to me because she kept trying to speak about, things that were going on, just how she was being treated by other people in the town or the village or whatever. And like nobody believed her, nobody wanted to listen to her. They were just like, Dorothy, can you like go do something else? And so then she like throws a fit, and then the tornado comes, and she like faints or whatever, and then is like enters the magical world of Oz, and the house that gets taken up in the tornado falls on the Wicked Witch of the East, and then everyone's like celebrating, oh, the witch of the Wicked Witch of the whatever is dead, and blah blah blah. Um, and then goes on the rest of the story. So much to say about that. I don't want to spoil the ending, but one of the things to know about the actual Wizard of Oz is that he's basically the man behind the curtain, if you've heard that expression. And I haven't seen The Wiz, so I can't comment on it, but I should see it, to be honest. But the whole thing about the Wizard of Oz is that he's the man behind the curtain, so he's like all smoke and mirrors. What he looks like, and whenever you go see the wizard, it's like, just literally a bunch of smoke and mirrors. I think that's where a lot of those expressions may come from. And like, you think that the Wizard of Oz, he's this big, just like magical, mystical wizard with all of these powers and whatever, when the whole time he's like speaking into a microphone behind a curtain and like showing all these lights and these big, just whatever. And then you realize like he's just some dude with no real power. So, um, no real power other than the fact that he's manipulated an entire society into thinking that he's wonderful, magical, and powerful. So he has a way of being able to like control the masses based on this perceived power that he has. And I don't know, you could take that and go a bunch of different ways with it, but he kind of was like in the Wizard of Oz, he's like, all of the wishes, your heart's desire, that Dorothy and the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and the Lion all came to him with these wishes. He was like, well, look, you already have all of these powers within you, like what do you need me for, basically? And then Dorothy puts on the heels, clicks her heels 3 times. There's no place like home, there's no place like home. And then poof, she's back home. She has a new appreciation for all of these people who she had all these gripes with, and so on. So loose interpretation. Watch it for yourself, come to your own conclusions, and then let's talk about it. But yeah, all of that to say, um did Ari say like, "Oh, it's a man"? She probably did. I can't remember, but yeah, the best part about Wicked, the modern rendition in the movie, is that it's Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, and uh Elphaba and Glinda, both of the witches. They're very queer coded. Like, and then they're intentionally like can't canonically queer coded with each other. Their relationship is like up for interpretation, and that part of it also very much resonated with me on a personal level, because I've been the queer person who like the straight person, or the person who is unwilling to like go against traditional society or whatever, who's very like cis heteronormative, wants to be in a relationship with me because it seems like this cool, mysterious alternative thing to do, and then eventually realizing that like, yeah, that's not actually me though. I'm a patriarchy patty. I just gotta go do my patriarchy patty things. So, and then it's very heartbreaking to realize that like, somebody can only meet you relationally so far. So that's another element of it. But anyway, um, what does that have to do with anything? Yeah, what is this feeling? Felt very much Miss Celia and Shug Avery coded. It was. What is this feeling? Fuck. Okay, I only have 10 minutes. I need to wrap it up. Um, like, where was I going with this? I kind of got lost in the story of it all. Yeah, basically, kind of going back to the discourse and this idea of like not believing people based on their identities and their positions in society and stuff like that, or not taking them seriously, or villainizing them, or casting them aside, or whatever it is, because of their identity. Like, that's just evidence that the propaganda is working on you. Maybe not in every case, but in a lot of cases, like if a person, like going back to Beyonce, right? Because Beyonce has power and influence and billions of dollars and a very long history of a long pop culture history, basically. Um she's desirable, she's beautiful, all of these things, like, people are more prone to see goodness in her. That's what the connection was. People are more prone to see goodness and good intentions in Beyonce because of her basically her position and desirability, her class position and desirability, and that being something that a lot of us either consciously or subconsciously subscribe to. Um, and so anyone who tries to critique or point out, the political implications of that is seen as someone who is a hater or who is, XYZ things that they can weaponize your identity against you. Like, you just broke, so you're a hater. You wish you could be her. You're just, you're not black enough to speak on Beyonce. You're not, and kind of the whole "you are not" thing is Aquarius coded as well. But like, you're not blank enough, whatever it is, to really have a say on this lady's art because of who you are. When the reality is, like, we're talking about politics, and like all art is political because it exists in a political context, right? And the other thing that I was going to say was, like, people talk about there being no ethical consumption in capitalism, right? Or in this type of in a consumer society. Basically, there's no ethical consumption because the consumerism itself is um is unethical. It is killing the earth in the larger spectrum. It's killing the earth and it's killing marginalized people because the production of said of because the means of production are owned, all the politics of it. I'm not even going to get into all that, but the means of production are owned by capitalists. People's labor is being exploited in order for us to consume our little things and stuff. And then even whenever it comes to art, the artists themselves are tainted by capitalism, right? And so I was thinking about the whole, like, separate the art from the artist thing and like no ethical consumption under capitalism. And I was thinking, like, going back to Mercury and Sagittarius and the Gemini full moon thing is, like, sometimes the most ethical thing you can do while you're consuming unethically is to say that it's unethical, is to, like, actually acknowledge the implications of the things that you're consuming, or to acknowledge the context that the thing you're consuming exists in, like iPhones, for example. It's unethical for me to have this phone. And it's not because I myself, like, stole it or whatever, but it's because the materials required to create this phone were obtained through unethical means. And so I can have an iPhone and say, hey, probably stop fucking buying new iPhones every single year when your iPhone still works. There's planned obsolescence and everything like that. But like, there's no need to just get an upgrade simply because a new phone came out if you know that the implications of your consumption have impacts globally, right? You can listen to Cowboy Carter and bop along to Yaya and whatever else songs that you like, Hands to Heaven and this and that, and enjoy the music and still acknowledge that Beyonce is problematic, and acknowledge that the American flag is problematic. You can be, dare I say, proud to be an American um in the black Southern experience and what that means to you and the things that we've overcome ancestrally and all that kind of stuff, and still critique America, right? So there's like there's like a way that we have to be able to kind of, I don't even want to say separate ourselves because I don't think you can. We live in America and therefore we're kind of implicated by our American politicians, like you can't really the Israelis dancing to "You Can't Break My Soul" in the movie killed it for me. It did for me too. I mean, you can't break my soul in dinner. You can't break my soul in general was kind of like hard for me at the time because what she's talking about we can relate to, and in some ways, like, sure, she can relate to it in the sense that Beyonce is a workaholic, like she is, but she don't have to do any of that. She's rich enough that she could abandon all of that shit and be fine for quite some amount of time. But anyway, all that to say, like, the principle of the thing, like, it's about living in the contradiction, basically. like even within ourselves, because it's like I don't even think that we can really, and I've pushed back against this and gone back and forth against this a lot in my own personal life in relationships, but like we are not separate from the American government, you know? Like we are not, going back to the whole separating the art and the artist thing, like we are both victimized by our government and benefiting from the actions of our government, in the sense that the most powerful military on earth and having nuclear weapons and whatever else does kind of protect us from other countries basically like getting their lick back, you know, their well-deserved lick back. And so it's tricky and it's complicated and it's nuanced to be a Black American, or to be a queer American, or to be a trans American, or to be a whatever marginalized group that is born in and lives in America, right? We have to be willing to be honest about that and to say, call the spade a spade, right? Um, does that immediately mean that we're all bad, evil people? No. Some people, yeah, kind of. You are. Probably not people watching this video, but there are some people out there who are doing bad and evil things, who are deeply corrupt, who are manipulating us, who are trying to indoctrinate us, who are trying to do all of these different things, um, and are in positions of power to do so. And there are a lot of people who are doing bad things or struggling to make these connections or whatever it is, simply because they're propagandized, you know? So what am I trying to say here? I'm also trying to have some grace for people who are doing things and making decisions that we don't agree with or don't understand. So back to the whole like separating the art and the artist thing. Like if you want to listen to Beyonce, right? Like you can listen to Beyonce. Listen to the music. The problem comes in when you are like defending a billionaire who you don't know, or defending a celebrity who you don't know, and trying to like do the parasocial, like, I don't know, defense of this person who is like, we only get the image of them that is sold to us, right? Um we only get the image of them that is sold to us. So whenever we find out that the people whose art that we enjoy are doing bad things, you know, and have way more power and influence to actually like change things, or to at least change the public opinion or perception of a thing. Like, you know, they aren't necessarily under an obligation to us to do something different. We're just acknowledging that they do actually have more power to influence change than maybe a lot of us give them credit for. And in some ways they also don't, because they are underneath the boot, so to speak, with their celebrity and their influence. And there's a lot of conspiracies around that as well that I think are actually true. You know, I think Beyonce can cosplay Black Power, but I don't think Beyonce can really go much further than that without implicating her own life. And I'm not saying that that's an excuse, but I'm just saying it speaks to, and this kind of goes back to Wicked as well, it speaks to the consequences of actually like embodying radical politics and beliefs, you know? So I guess the wrap it up all up in a bow thing is just kind of realizing the contradictions and the ways that we may really care about something politically, or we may really care about something, I don't know, when we really care about the just the implications of our actions in a larger, grander political sense, and we can't necessarily do something to change it as individuals on these basic levels. But what we can do is be honest about what's going on, instead of trying to defend or justify the evil in the world because we see ourselves in it and we feel like we're bad people if we don't somehow make it okay for me to consume Beyonce. It's like, no, just listen to Beyonce's music and acknowledge the fact that you don't know that lady, and it's unethical to be a billionaire, and it's unethical to be spreading American propaganda during a time where America is doing a lot of really bad shit, and in fact collapsing on itself and doing a lot of really harmful things to Black people and other marginalized people. Both can exist at the same time, and it's uncomfortable and it's not supposed to feel good, and that's okay, you know? You can feel good and bop to the music. This was a whole thing with Renaissance as well. Like, that is a good album. Sonically, fantastic album. I played it a lot. I will still listen to it a lot. Heated is like one of my most played songs still, just because it's fun to listen to. And that's not going to stop me from acknowledging that she was doing a lot of pandering to the Black queer community, you know, and that, like, when taken too far, like, people will use whatever it is, art, music, this and that, to justify all kinds of unfortunate things, or at the very least to ignore and totally like disregard reality. So I don't know. My point of all of this is just kind of like, it's really just reckoning with the contradictions that we embody, and that being part of being human in a complicated world, in a complex world. And maybe we don't need to villainize each other, you know, as individuals, our own personal identities and character attacks. Like, maybe we don't need to take it that far. People don't need to be calling that girl on TikTok out her name, saying that because she had a white mom as a biracial girl that she's suckling on the teat of her oppressor. Like, that is her mother. What are y'all saying? And not only that, but the implications of having this discourse around, like, you know, biracial people and white mom and black dad and whatever else, like, getting into all of that shit is just like kind of doing its own, it's like doing the CIA's work for them, in the sense that, like, Loving versus Virginia, the precedent, the legal precedent for interracial marriage and like segregation and all of that type of stuff, you're making it easier for them to roll that shit back, and then again making life harder for all Black people, going back to Jim Crow one drop rule times. Like, does anybody think about that? Did anybody consider that while you're on here yelling about biracial people shouldn't exist or whatever the fuck? And now we got people, batshit people, um who are in the Supreme Court, who can very much make it to where Black and white people, like, now we got Black only bathrooms and shit again, you know, like Black only neighborhoods and white only restaurants and all of that shit. Like, it's a slippery slope right now to be doing all of that. So it's just like, I don't know, when we're doing identity politics in the serious sense, I don't mean it in the identity reductionism sense that a lot of people do it right now, but when we're doing identity politics in all of the ways, in a serious way, like in the intersections of all of those things, we need to consider how people are, and this is the point of Mercury and Sagittarius ruling Gemini full moon. We need to consider the implication of how we are discussing and talking about these things, and how it's shaping people's minds and how they see other people and how they see certain identities, and how, like, we're in a really sensitive time that it is shaping, like, collective consciousness in the States, at least. I mean, and kind of across the world, because now people in all over the world can listen in on our conversations and our discourse and be like, what are y'all talking about? It's like, y'all are still on that. I thought, you know, civil rights movement ended however many decades ago. It's like, people are very susceptible to propaganda right now. Basically, people are very susceptible to eugenics and ableism and racism and so on and so forth. So, like, cut the shit. Cut the shit. Be mindful of your audience and the people who are listening to you. And if you're going to have these discussions, like, stick with the actual issue at hand. Maybe have some curiosity about the things that people are suggesting within these critiques, and rather than take it as a personal offense to yourself and your own identity, like, do a little bit of the separating yourself from the art or the situation or whatever the topic is, to just hear what is being said, and then draw a conclusion that is like, yes, I'm implicated in this, but it's not a statement about my personhood. Like, I don't know. They're just like, you ain't got to take this shit that far. This is my point. So anyway, I have to go because I need to eat before I go to work. But I'm curious your thoughts on this. I do want to read over the chat real quick before I go, because it's complicated. I don't even feel like I did a very good job of articulating it, but I see how the discourse that is happening now and that is coming over the next few years is very much still trying to divide us and trying to take us back to the olden days that were only good for white nationalists, basically. Like, we have to be very careful that we are not parroting white nationalists, basically Nazi talking points in 2025, because, child, people are already there. And it's very, very unfortunate to see. And this is why astrology is important for politics. I don't want to hear nothing from no tropical astrologers who be like, we should keep politics out of astrology. No, the fuck we shouldn't. Hello? That's again trying to take astrology out of the context that it exists in. Please miss me with that. Um Sometimes it be political on its own, and especially when planets are in Sagittarius. Okay. Imperialist core complications for sure. Exactly. Um Even when people were crashing out over KRS being a Trumper, it was weird. Like, he's just a guy at the end of the day. Separate the association to a person with worthiness or status. I mean, but even that, like, because I didn't crash out over him, but I was kind of surprised. But then I remembered, like, even the political system that he previously existed in, with the caste system and things like that, like, that's influencing his perception. And he was saying weird, sexist, misogynistic stuff about Kamala as well. Um, and at the same time, you can still acknowledge that she wasn't going to be, she's not Trump, but she had her own problems that came with her too. So yeah, just like, all of those things included. And she didn't even mention that boy who died listening to her music. Right. That guy that got jumped listening to the Renaissance album, got jumped by people who I assume were homophobic. I also hate how she keeps shouting out that Zionist Lorraine jewelry lady, like, on my house. Yeah. She really didn't. I will never get over people saying Beyonce is queer, and if you critique her, you're homophobic. Please stop. I'm not even, no. Control Alt Delete. Enough. Whenever you get in those conversations or see that discourse, you got to step back because some people are in too deep. Like, zoom out a little bit. Absolutely. Eugenics ideology and not for a productive conversation about desire or fetishism versus like regular people. Yeah. He was unalived by some homophobic piece of trash, and all she did was put his name on the stage. No mention in that film at all, and also wouldn't say AIDS in the film. Very Reagan of her. Ooh. Yeah, I never saw the film either. I did want to, though, but no, I never saw it. Well, I didn't hear about that at all. It's so tragic that the tour was honoring her late uncle, but the tour was probably a COVID super spreader. Right, another contradiction. Like, could have asked people at her own concert to mask. I have no doubt that behind the scenes she has people masking around her all the time. So it's like, why not just suggest, like, hey, so if you're gonna come to my concert, like, COVID's still a thing. I'm still protecting myself from COVID in private spaces, so maybe wear a mask. Look, you can have it fit in with the dress code theme that I have going on. It can be like a masquerade party. So many creative ways that she could have honored her late uncle who died from an immune compromising disease during a time that an immune compromising disease is still spreading and affecting marginalized people. Um, the air purifiers were seen in the film backstage. Yeah, all the fans, everything else. So it's just kind of like, I understand the urge to call people hypocrites, and I also implore us to acknowledge the ways that we are hypocrites. Have grace for yourself, have grace for other people. Don't mean you got to like them, be friends with them, be close to them, but it's just kind of like, before you jump into judging, vilifying, cutting off, writing people off based on this one thing, it's like, okay, like, by all means keep your boundaries, but also, like, reel it in a little bit. You don't need to take it so far, because really, what is that for? And also speak up against things that are wrong and bad. Acknowledge the ways that you participate in said thing that is wrong and bad, and you still enjoy it, kind of, sometimes. Like, two things can be true at once. So, happy Gemini full moon. My birthday is next Tuesday. To whom it may concern, I don't have any plans. I wanted to do a live, not a live, I wanted to do a Zoom where I read my own solar return chart. And if you want to read my solar return with me, maybe you could do that. I think that'd be cool. I also may not do that. I'll let you guys know for sure because I feel a little bit like don't share publicly astro information right now. I feel like a little bit spiritually guarded. So I may not do that. But if I decide for whatever reason, consult with my spirits and decide that it's fine, then I'll do it. If not, maybe I'll just go live on my birthday instead of on Monday since it's on a Tuesday. So I'll see what I do. But yeah, I'll be turning 30. You're free on my birthday? I still have to work on my fucking birthday. It's annoying. When your birthday falls on a weekday, is on a Tuesday. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see if I do anything. But you're more than welcome to just, send me money and thoughts and prayers. Wish me a nice year ahead and a nice 30th birthday. Oh, he gonna put himself on blast, bold. Yeah, I actually looked more into my solar return on Saturday, and I was like, maybe I don't want to talk about this publicly. It's a seventh house year, so I don't need evil eye or open conflict. But yeah, other than that, my sidereal astrotherapy workshop 101 workshop words is on January 26th. Should be a Sunday at 12 p.m. I am 90% sure I will still be doing that workshop. I may have some changes to my life happening soon that once I find out for sure, I will update you all. I may not know till the end of the month, but I'm still going to work on it in the meantime. And if it doesn't happen this month, it will happen eventually, but I actually kind of need it to happen this month. You can purchase tickets on my booking website if you want to. $10 for everybody, $5 for Patreons. And it's just, I'm going to tell you, I'm just a big brain dump of basic astro knowledge through the lens of astrotherapy and the way that I use it. All the psychological and sociological and political themes. But I want to try to keep it as simple as possible. Other than that, that's all I got. Okay, like the video, subscribe, and I will see y'all next week. Have a wonderful day and full moon. Peace.